And one thing I've been saying very frequently is that I think the very least you could do is to quote your swap and look at a centralized exchange side by side. I think that would be like the bare minimum of what you should do if you believe in decentralization on any level. I am understanding of the idea that people want to save on fees and want to use whatever has the lowest fees, in order to conduct their trades and whatnot. That being said, I think, and for those people who just want to maximize, profits and maximize, efficiency, like I said, quote it side by side, because very frequently I would say at the very least, 20% of the time, using LeoDEX is actually cheaper than using centralized exchanges. And the reason why is because we actually have built in arbitrage to the Hive aggregation technology, and it passes that arbitrage, either fee or profit, onto the user. So if there is a negative arbitrage, then it passes on that negative arbitrage to the user. If there's a positive arbitrage, it passes on that positive arbitrage to the user. So and this is why quoting at different times is important, because sometimes you may quote a swap on LeoDEX, whether, let's say that you're buying Hive, using USDC, sometimes you may quote that swap and you'll actually get paid to make that swap. And I can guarantee you that a centralized exchange is not paying you. They're charging you some small fee for doing your trades on that centralized exchange. LeoDEX will actually pay you to make the swap sometimes. So like I said, I think from my personal subjective experience, I haven't put any data to this. It's about 20% of the time that I quote a swap, and I will actually get paid to make that swap, and pay zero fees and actually earn money for making, that swap. Like the other day I did one, it was like a $300 swap, and I got paid like $17 in extra Hive. And so I bought Hive, and I think I bought it with Rune. So I did a Rune to Hive trade, and I put in $300 worth of Rune, and I got outputted $317 worth of Hive. So I got an extra $17 worth of Hive, and paid obviously no fees. So it's a self-balancing system, and if it goes out of balance, it will either charge the user or pass on profits to the user in order to rebalance itself. So it's actually a really interesting mechanism that we've built into the Hive aggregation technology. And as the trading volume grows, as more people use it, those arbitrage imbalances will continue, and they'll change more. I guess what would be the word? They would change more rapidly. So that, every time you quote it, you'll get a different quote. And I think that that's actually a generally positive thing, because it balances itself back out. And then when streaming swaps are released, it will be, that much more efficient. So again, it's just like, for the bare minimum user, I would say at least quote your swap on LeoDEX in addition to looking at a centralized exchange. And know that if your fees and slippage are less than probably 0.5% on LeoDEX, it's probably more efficient and faster to use LeoDEX versus the centralized exchange. And then if you are a proponent of decentralization, I always say decentralization is a spectrum. So I also think the users of decentralization are a spectrum. So if, projects live on a spectrum of decentralization, but users do as well. So, some of us believe very, very, fervently about decentralization, and you would live at the end of the spectrum, where you may be willing to pay up to 5 or 10% in fees just to be decentralized and avoid centralization. And then I would say there's a whole spectrum of people in between that and what I just described as being the people who look for the most price efficiency and are kind of centralization agnostic. So you can live anywhere on that spectrum, and I think that LeoDEX can service you at various points. It just depends, like I said, on the quoting mechanisms. So I would say at the very least you should just be quoting it side by side with a centralized exchange, depending on how decentralized of a proponent you are. But Hive is one of the most decentralized blockchains in the space. I've said that for a long time. I think it's second only to a handful of other blockchains, if even that many. Like there's Bitcoin and there's Hive. Like there aren't that many fully decentralized blockchains out there. But I do think that Hive is one of the top tier in terms of, like I said, on that spectrum of decentralization. But that being said, the trading volume of Hive as an asset is almost entirely centralized. It's like 99.5% centralized in terms of trading volume. So my goal by the end of next year, 2025, is to get 10% of that centralized trading volume away from Binance because it is primarily Binance, and move it to decentralized exchanges like Maya Protocol. And using the LeoDEX interface and the Hive aggregator that we built is the path to get there. So, my goal, and this has been my goal for years now, is to decentralize the trading volume of Hive because I think Hive is one of the most decentralized blockchains out there. But I think one of the number one threats for Hive is how centralized the trading volume is. Because all it takes is Binance delisting Hive, for example, for a lot of us to no longer have access to trading Hive. I know many people on Hive who are, in the US or in certain jurisdictions where they can't access Binance and they use something called MEXC and various other centralized exchanges. And, there used to be another one, what was it called? Mandala used to be another exchange that a lot of people could use. Mandala went out. They added KYC, and MEXC over the past couple months has started putting out notices for KYC as well. So, the options for trading Hive are continuing to dwindle. And my goal is just to make another option available. I'm not saying that 100% of trading volume needs to come from Binance and move to LeoDEX. But I am saying that LeoDEX needs to be another option. I think another, great person out there in the space is Brian of London. He's building Hive and Bitcoin Lightning rails. And again, that's another option. And I think it's extremely important that we have as many options as possible. I got into the Bitcoin space, like, I think almost 9 years ago at this point. And the whole purpose of this industry is to create more optionality and more freedom. And, I'm all for that. And that is what I've been trying to build as well, is more optionality and more freedom for Hive users. So again, Brian of London is one person out there doing that. LeoDEX is another option out there. And the more options, the better.
Yeah, one thing that people, well, not people, anyone who wonders, LeoDEX doesn't want to have 100% of the volume of the current volume that Hive has, because that would just make us the same liability for the Hive blockchain as what Binance is right now. So the goal would be, like Kyle says, to have 10% of that and maybe just get to an ambitious, I don't know, 30, 40%, maybe 50%, but allow other protocols to always offer different options so that nobody can say that they control the way Hive trades, or like, because it would be virtually the same as what Binance is doing right now. That if, as Carl said, if they control the listing and one day they decide, oh, we no longer want to trade Hive because the fees are, or the volume is not enough, then all of us is screwed, and no one can, like, if we don't, like, it's like the like what Iron Man said, we have to be the pre-Avengers, not the Avengers. We have to prevent Binance delisting Hive and have something in store for when that happens, because at one point it will happen. So we just gotta be ready.